Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. We're a little disjointed today. This is Eddie Huff, Dave Van Risgam, and Fresh Black Coffee. Good to see everybody. This is our, first or second show in October? This is our first show in October, isn't it? I think that's what's doing it, the Ides of October. I know it's supposed to be Ides of March, but it's 6 months later. So
it's our October surprise.
7 months later. Yes, I don't even know. My math is slipping. The Ides of October. I'm going to make up a new one, the Ides of October. Hey, everybody, it's good to be with you. Man, Dave, I'm worn down.
Yeah.
This campaigning takes a lot out of you.
It does.
You don't realize, it stays on your mind. You're up in the morning, you're up late at night, you're thinking about it, one moment you think you're doing well, the next moment you got to keep going, got to keep going. Reminds me somewhat of C.S. Lewis. Did I ever tell you, have we talked about to me, probably the most important phrase or sentence in the whole Chronicles of Narnia? In The Horse and His Boy.
Yeah, you like that one. I had other ones.
Yeah. But I think maybe it's so important to me because I'm so the person who does something or achieves something and then want to rest on that laurel. Mm-hmm. You do something, you reach a certain point, achieve something, and then think, or you overcome something with God's help, and you think, okay, I'm glad I got through that. I've achieved this. I made this. Something you've been praying for or working towards and all. For those of you that aren't familiar, in the Chronicles of Narnia, the last book, if you read them in the order that it was originally published, a lot of people read them out of order. And yeah, it makes some sense because there are a few books that are backflash, or flashback. My goodness, you see how bad it is today. Anyway, flashbacks. But anyway, in this one, it's called The Horse and His Boy. It's the next to number 6 out of 7 books. And it's about a young man. It's a kid or a young boy. And he's probably in his preteens, late preteen, maybe he's 12, 13 years old or something. And he's been tasked with warning these towns and villages ahead about an imminent attack from the enemy, this enemy army coming. And so he goes and he has to suffer all of these things that come against him in his task to warn them. And so he reaches this one town. He's been attacked by a lion. He's been going through all of this, temptations and all of this. And so finally he does it. He warns the city, and the city is able to prepare against the enemy. And he sits there and he feels good about himself. And just as he's ready to relax and enjoy the praise that he's receiving for having saved this city and all, he's told, hey, wait a minute. We need you to go to the next city and warn them. And he's still pretty tired. He was just wanting to relax. They said, you can't rest now. You've got to go to the next city and warn them. And this is the phrase that stuck with me my entire life. Now, I read this thing when I was 21 years old, 21, 22 years old, which is a few decades ago. We won't say how many. It's been a while. Let's put it this way. But it's still there. And anyway, this line that C.S. Lewis throws in there, and I want you to remember this. He says, he was disappointed because he had not yet learned that the reward for doing a great deed is to be asked to do a greater one.
Yeah.
And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
We got a saying in my house, you've heard the term honeydews, right? The list of things.
The list your wife gives you.
Yes. And I always refer the vernacular that Debbie and I have come up with. Those are called monkeys on my back. And we have a rule, 10 o'clock at night, you don't get to add monkeys on my back. I'm going to bed. So I have certain human rights. It's 10 o'clock. You have to save it till tomorrow.
But see, the smart wife tells you which monkeys are waiting when you wake up.
Yeah. So
if she's smart, she just tells you, oh, by the way, tomorrow morning, would you mind doing this, and giving you your list for your monkeys to put on your back in the morning. But
here's the other. Yeah, Debbie, I'm telling on you is when I'll mention something that is on her list that she just has to handle that. She said, oh, can you remind me about that tomorrow? Now it's a monkey on my back to remind her before, because otherwise she could blame me for not reminding.
Your monkeys aren't enough. She got to throw hers on your back to throw on her.
Now, as a campaign manager, I used to have a client that did that.
We won't mention any names. Present company excluded, I'm sure. Hey,
but getting back to your point, I think that is valid because Scripture says, he who is faithful little shall be made ruler over much.
Right.
But that's not all of it. The ruler, remember, Jesus is the greatest among you, be your servant.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So for example, I'm running for office,
right?
And all of those running for office, you have the prize, in a sense, if it's a prize or a reward, really. But when you get there, is it a prize? It's not. It's really a task you've been given.
There you go.
If you are truly doing it and seeing it as it is.
If your heart's right.
It's not a prize. It's a calling. It's a task.
Yeah.
And you talk about being hit with things, challenges, problems, enemies that you're facing on a daily basis and things you're taking to bed with you and waking up with. It's even more. So like, for example, so right now the campaigning may seem tiring or whatever, but then when you get there, and when you win on the day, hey, we won this or whatever. But then the next day, it's like Dan Bourne. I remember Dan Bourne. I interviewed him. And when I was on KFAQ, Dan Bourne had just won re-election. And I remember him telling us when I asked him about everything, how is it now? He said, oh, you don't know. He said, from the day I wake up the next morning, I have to start fundraising again for the next cycle and start working in this and this and this. He said, it's tiring. I believe that's one reason he finally said, you can take this job and shove it, and I understand now somewhat what he was facing.
Yeah.
But, and he really turned me around. He was a Democrat. Somebody called me and got on me because I was attacking him on a regular basis, but he was a stand-up person to call in on the show and answer the questions. And then he proved himself. The man who called in and got on me about attacking him as being he was another liberal Democrat or whatever.
Yeah.
He said, no, he has Oklahoma values and he stands. And he really proved himself to be that way, that he was not another typical Democrat.
Yeah.
And finally he admitted, he said that was another part, of why he stepped down, because he couldn't put up with the pressure they were putting on him to do things that violated his conscience and the values of Oklahomans.
Yeah. His dad, was it his dad or his uncle?
His dad. It was his dad.
David Bourne. David Bourne kept changing with the times.
Right.
And to the point when he was president of OU, he turned that into a woke, crazy zoo. A jungle. But Dan didn't change. The party he represented changed.
Right.
And Dan, because I remember the old conservative Southern Democrat and those
the
values.
yellow dogs.
Yeah. And so That's the thing. Dan was part of an endangered species, which is all but extinct now. And I don't think we truly appreciated what he represented.
Yeah, I think one reason for their extinction, as you would say, is that so many of them have finally given up and they switch parties. They become Republicans.
Right.
And so now what you have left is the most extreme liberal.
Yeah.
Now you have some who still don't want to believe it. Democrat till I die, that kind of thing. I know people like that they just cannot. They were raised to feel Republicans are for the rich and all the rich snobs and so forth. And it's funny, it's actually changed because now you've got your elitists on the Democrat side because they figured out how this works, and they can manipulate the people on that side. And so now the working class is actually switched over to the Republicans. I mean, it's really weird. I mean, everything is because the founding of the Republican Party was initially the anti-slavery party.
Yeah.
The Republicans basically led to the abolition of slavery.
Yeah, we were the hero of the black man's liberty.
Right. And in fact, in the initial articles of the first platform of the Republican Party, I think there were nine different articles in the platform. And of those 9, I think 7 of them dealt with, all but 2 of the items in the platform dealt with the abolition of slavery.
Yeah.
So we were the abolition party. Now, the Democrats have tried to bury that and make it look like they're the abolitionist party.
Oh, yeah. And the media is just playing that whole thing.
Right, sure. And so, and now it's like everything's turned around. And here's what's funny, too. I don't know how many know this. The NAACP, okay, National Organization for the Advancement of Colored People. And that was founded by Republicans, white Republicans, white Jewish Republicans. They, I think all but one were Jewish Republicans. Okay. That's who founded the NAACP. They've tried to change that narrative now, the Democrats have, to that W.E.B. Du Bois was the founding member of the NAACP, but he was only brought in to be a member and their editor.
Oh, okay.
They were founded in 1909.
Okay.
The first black president of the NAACP did not become president until 1927. Yeah, almost 20 years later.
Okay.
So these are different facts that the Democrats don't want you to know. And by the way, the first movie ever shown, motion picture, moving picture as they used to call it, the first moving picture ever shown in the White House was the tale. What's this? Oh my goodness! It's not the Tale of Two Cities, not the Tale of Two Nations. Oh no! Oh my goodness! Now it's left my mind.
Well, the classic is Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, no. This was a Civil War movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And they've remade it. Actually, they've remade the movie. But anyway, it was a movie about the Civil War and involved the Ku Klux Klan and everything. But it was shown in the White House during Woodrow Wilson's. I wish I could remember. I'm sorry. I apologize. Dave will find out, and we'll figure it out by the end at the end of the show. And Dave will
monkey on my back.
Yeah, no. but David will put it on it. But anyway, oh my goodness. Well, anyway, it was a racist film.
Okay.
And it was shown.
I thought it was Al Jolson's The Jazz
No,
Singer.
no.
That was a talkie.
Yeah. No. This was a silent film. Anyway, it was shown in the White House, and it was shown by Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat. So there's all kinds of racist history in the Democrat Party, and I could go on and on. I don't want to do that right now, but I just want people to understand all of this, that the Democrat Party has tried to rehabilitate itself now and have revisionist history, which is not true.
You're talking about the birth of a nation?
Birth of a nation.
Yeah.
Birth of a nation. Thank you. Thank you, Dixie.
Plugged into the internet, folks.
Birth of a Nation is what it is. And that was the first film ever shown in the White House. And it was a pretty racist film.
Yeah.
And Woodrow Wilson was happy to show it in the White House.
A Democrat.
Yeah, Democrat in the White House at that time. So anyway, this is what went on. Also, the Republicans tried to pass civil rights legislation umpteen times from 1865 to 1965, but it was vetoed every time by the Democrats. They never would allow it. The last time was the Civil Rights Act of 1958 by President Eisenhower. And that Civil Rights Act of 1958, which the Democrats would not filibuster, they filibustered it and would not allow it to pass, is the same exact act that was passed in 1965 under Lyndon Johnson. And that's because Lyndon wanted the black vote. The Democrats needed the black vote. So they finally, but he was only able to get it passed with the help of more Republicans voted for it than Democrats did.
Right.
So there's so much there in that if you do a true search historically, you will find that the Republican Party has always been the party of liberty, freedom for all men in America, worldwide. The Democrat Party has been the party of slavery and oppression.
Right.
And there's still that. The difference is that now they're wanting to suppress and oppress the entire nation, but they're doing it in a different way. They're doing it by class. So, and this brings us to immigration. Let's go to immigration, okay?
Man, I got notes from 10 minutes ago of things you said.
To relate to?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you would move on.
Well, bring them back. If you can remember them.
Yeah.
We'll go back again because this is very important.
Let's go to immigration. It's on your mind.
Okay. So what's happening with immigration, it's a class thing, okay? See what the Democrat Party has done once the civil rights passed, they've been able to have poor blacks, poor whites. They've been able to keep that division and keep them hating each other.
Yes. Thank you. That's so important.
Right. They've convinced poor whites to think poor blacks are their enemy. And that's what's a threat to them. Poor black people think it's poor whites, white people in general. But now, as white people have started letting their guard down and realizing, wait a minute, they're not so bad. My neighbors, my black neighbors are actually good people. You know, my black son-in-law is actually a good guy.
Hey, Khalil.
Yeah. You know, my daughter-in-law, my black daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Those beautiful brown children aren't such a bad deal.
No.
You know. So anyway, it started hitting. So they realized, okay, now we're into a new era. So what do we do now? Now we're into a true class war.
Yeah.
See, I wrote in my book here, Y'all Have Sinned, that it's not, and it's never been about race.
Yep.
It's always about class.
Yeah.
And we look for different items to identify and differentiate class. And the only thing that has made Black people relegated to a lower class for so long is that the color is an identifier. And we talked about this, I think, last week.
Oh, when haven't we?
Okay. The fact that if I was white and poor, but I was smart and learned how to speak properly, how to identify as a cultured person, right, with some couth, then what I could do, I could run away and move to another town and assume a new identity. I could be Lord Edward.
Oh, yeah.
I could be Lord Edward of Denton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I could move to Denton, Texas. Nobody knows who I am.
That's right.
But Lord Edward, who's Black, isn't going to get very far. Because no matter where I am, I'm still Black.
Yeah.
So back then you couldn't do that. So a white person could move and change region, change country, change state, and
reinvent themselves.
Yeah. And a Black person could. So that was the deal.
Yeah.
But as far as every culture's had slaves, every culture's had a low class, or for some reason, one group served the other group and one group was disliked by another group. Every group had slaves. The Scandinavians came down and enslaved the British. They went all along the Atlantic coast of Europe, Holland, France, Spain, and made slaves, took them back to Scandinavia.
Oh, the Vikings did even more than that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, Scandinavia.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm listening.
Let me let me translate. You'd have been a slave because you didn't quite.
Is that freckles?
You didn't quite get the intellect to be to identify with the.
There you go.
No, I know what Dave's problem is. My problem: listening skills.
I'm still trying to remember what he said 10 minutes ago, or 15.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. I'm rambling. I'm going on too long. I'm sorry. He's trying to remember. Okay. I will wrap it up. I think you get the picture. Okay. I think you get the picture. Back to the original thought. Democrats have not been, are not, and never will be the party of the people. They are the oppressor of the people, and they are now the party of the elitist, and they have morphed into the Communist Party, where you had the party people, the leaders of the party, the bourgeoisie, and then you had the non-party people who were the low class and servants of the party. That's it, David. It's in your court.
Real simple tie-in here. What about the Larry Holmes axiom? Where does that fit in?
You mean if you're Black and rich, you ain't Black?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's why it goes back to it. What I'm saying, it's a class thing. So Blacks, like I said, we morphed into a communist socialist issue. For example, in Cuba, let's take Cuba. Those of you that are old enough to remember, there was a name Teofilo Stevenson.
Oh, yeah.
The heavyweight boxer.
Yes.
He was the Olympic champion.
Yeah, beat the snot out of my neighbor in 72. Dwayne Bobbitt was Great White Hope from America.
Right.
Stevenson clobbered him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was a great boxer, but he never reached what he might have become had he been free to fight professionally in America or around the world.
Yeah.
And but Stevenson lived a lavish life in Cuba because he was a national hero. So the entertainment class is also a special class. They were allowed to live with the elite class under communism. And it's the same in Russia.
It's the Hunger Games. If you win the Hunger Games,
you go to
you get to live in the victors' village.
Yeah, whatever that.
Where the victors are.
Right. Where but it was in that Centerville or whatever.
In the capital.
Yeah, the capital. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had the districts. District 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
It's like the Roman Empire. Are you a Roman citizen or are you just a subject of the empire?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's but that's I mean, it's not deep sociology, but if you look at it and cut it down to its simplest terms, That's what it is.
Yeah.
And they're like the court jesters of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, the plaything.
And the Greeks, the Roman Empire. I mean, it's played over and over and over and again.
I think what they call the house Negro, the servant that got to work in the master's quarters. Is that the right term?
Yeah, but it's a little different. That's yeah. That would be more when you look at the bourgeois. Mm-hmm. That's the house Negro. Mm-hmm. It's the bourgeoisie, which is that middle class group of people that do your work and get everything done, and then you got the low class, which are I've talked about this before. I didn't learn this until we went back to Europe to work as missionaries. They're in Amsterdam and in Germany, and I came into contact with Eastern Europeans that had escaped communism, and they told me they weren't murdering them, persecuting the Christians unless they became a problem.
Yeah. But
just a normal Christian, you could be a normal Christian as long as you weren't spreading it and causing trouble. Right. Yeah. But the difference was that as a Christian, you could not basically swear that you were an atheist, And so what they did to be a communist, a member of the party, that's where the member of the party, you had to essentially swear to be an atheist.
Yeah.
And so if you didn't become a party member, you couldn't go to college. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't go to college, you couldn't get one of the better jobs.
Yeah.
And you can't get a better job. You're a street sweeper, work in a restaurant. You're low class, basically. You couldn't get good housing. You couldn't eat at the best places. So that's how it is. And that is how I think we're being set up here in the United States.
Yeah, I personally know someone who come from Russia. I mean, personally. Mm-hmm. No, and she was a lawyer, graduate University of Moscow. But she did not, still in today's Russia, she has no future there. She now works in a church in the Tulsa metro area, serving, people in Jesus' name. And to her, that's more liberty and fulfillment than being an attorney in Russia. So it's still there. Growing up in a little town in Minnesota where I grew up, if you weren't Catholic, you were Lutheran. If you weren't Catholic or Lutheran, you kept quiet about it. I think because the persecution comes when you are openly, outwardly expressive about it.
Right. See, that's kind of where Russia is today. That they have essentially made a deal with the Russian Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
So if you're Russian Orthodox, you're good.
Yeah.
In other words, they're no longer making you be an atheist, but you can be a member of the Russian Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
But if you're a Baptist or a Pentecostal, nope. That's when you got issues. So
comfortable coexistence.
Yeah. And that's why so many churches in America today have become so liberal, and they are towing the Democrat line, and the Democrat Party has essentially, which is kind of sad. I mean, it's really sad that they've become so, liberal theologically.
Yeah.
And people, what gets me is people who they profess Christianity, but when it gets down to it, you wonder, how can you profess to be a Christian and even, cite scripture, but deep down, the things you say that you believe don't line up with the teachings of Christ.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to stop, Dave. You go back. If you can remember now, go back.
I can, and I will.
And so
but
it's yours.
I got to say something on this because you just set me up great. You remember the book, Crossing the Switchblade. We saw the movie, Pat Boone, Nikki Cruz story about going from a gang and drug addictions in New York City in the early 60s to being set free by the power of Jesus Christ. But one of the things that really led to the young preacher that Pat Boone played, David Wilkerson, going to New York was when his grandfather or his uncle, I forget, an early pioneer Pentecostal preacher, came to visit the church that David Wilkerson was pastoring in the Philadelphia area, if I remember right. And it was called the Muddy Boots Sermon. And Sunday night service, they opened all the windows, said, we are going to sing and let our light shine on the other side of the glass. And they're afraid they're going to offend the neighbors in this little fancy upscale neighborhood. So as a young preacher, I got to opportunity one weekend. The head of the denomination came up for our conference convention of, our denominational Pentecostal denomination. Wasn't Assembly of God, but very similar. And he talked to us ministers. He said, there's an association of Pentecostal denominations, a brotherhood. The Assemblies of God are part of it. He says, our denomination is a lot of the Church of God denominations. But we actually commissioned a study from Fuller Seminary about the Pentecostal movement, because he said, and this was in the early 80s, he said, we're approaching about 75 years old since Azusa Street. And we really want to get a good objective picture where we are. And he says, it's the recommendations for the future viability of the Pentecostal movement. Number one, and he says, curse the demon of respectability. When you want to be respected by society, I think you can bite on this, that we sometimes want to be accepted and approved of men. And Jesus warned us about that. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of some of what you're getting at here.
Yeah, it is. That's a whole other, I think it steps into a whole new situation where I think the church today, some of it I think is not evil intent, that, become all things to all men that you might reach some. Mm-hmm. That saying, I will become all things to all men that I might reach some. Mm-hmm. So they want so badly to identify with others, not to offend them, mm-hmm. but the gospel is a gospel right. of offense.
Avoid persecution at all costs is what it amounts to.
Right. But that's not the intent. The intent is to, for example, Jesus went into bars, mm-hmm. He spoke to prostitutes, mm-hmm. But see, we did that when I was with Youth with a Mission. Mm-hmm. We were in the red light district. Our building was where on one side of the building, you went down an alley and just 100 feet and you're in the red light district with the windows with the girls. Yeah. You go on the other side of the building, it's the Zaydike, and we had to ask the drug dealers to step out of the way so we could go in the door. Yeah. And it was all these just lined up drug dealers. Yeah. Right, across from the central train station. And yet we were there ministering to these people. Everybody knew we were there. We had a big blue lights, Jesus loves you, or God calls you. And yet, we didn't yield. In other words, we didn't say, oh, it's all right, just keep smoking that hash, mm-hmm. keep snorting that coke, mm-hmm. Taking that heroin, or keep sitting in those windows mm-hmm. every night. We were trying to get them out of it. We didn't partake in what they were doing.
Oh, so you didn't teach them to pray over the heroin before they shot it up.
Right. Or pray for their job. Right, exactly. So, one of the things, for example, I saw someone, the question someone posted on Facebook, if two lesbians show up, mm-hmm. They're holding hands and they come in and want to come into your church, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Well, to me, it's a simple Simple answer.
Mhm.
You tell them, girls, ladies, you're welcome in, but there's no open display of affection
Mhm.
in our church. If you come to hear the word of God or really seeking the Lord, you're here to seek Him,
Mhm.
not each other.
Mhm.
So, as soon as you're there with your arms around each other or showing some affection, our ushers will show you out.
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
But it's the same. Like, I've been in there and sat behind this teenage couple,
Mhm.
and the guy is there and they're all, and it's all about me showing affection to this girl or vice versa, and my thing is, ushers,
Yeah. No.
well, get them out of here. If
See, I relate to that young couple because that was me at one point.
I just said, look, you're not doing each other a favor.
That's right.
And you're not doing God or the church a favor.
Right. I agree.
If you came to come to church, come to church.
Yep.
If you want to be with each other and make out, go in the
That's
parking
right.
lot or go somewhere else.
That's right.
You don't need to be here. Oh, and the thing that really takes me off now is when I'm in church and I'm looking over and there's people on their phones the whole time, watching baseball game, football game.
He's not talking to me.
Checking the stock market, whatever.
Well, you got to get your final fantasy team lineup on Sunday morning before.
These are and what's sad is that we have, and you remember a few years ago I got in trouble because I took a picture of a lady with her hand up in the
coffee cup.
Giant. It wasn't a cup. It was a Yeti thing.
Yeah, that's right. It was a big container.
It was like a half gallon.
Yeah.
Yeti thing.
It was like this.
Exactly. Imagine that. And I'm thinking, because I think of lifting holy hands, and the word holy, people don't understand what the word holy really means. It doesn't mean pure. It doesn't mean unclean. That's what most people think. Holy means pure and unclean. Holy means set apart. Holy means sanctified. In other words, devoted to. I could do a whole.
Okay, no distractions.
And you're devoted to God. You're holy means you're either devoted to God or you're devoted to this or this. That's what the true word holy means. I have a whole piece on it. If you go back to the,
Paul's analogy about there are many vessels in the house, but some are of a set apart purpose, and some are just for common usage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some are holy, right, and some are not, right. But the holy means they're set apart, as and that's why, for example, when they had the Ark of the Covenant, and the guy accidentally tried to touch it, and was smitten dead because it was devoted to God, and he was not allowed to touch it.
Yeah.
It was serious. It was a serious thing.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that are devoted to God and certain things aren't. And when you're worshiping, either you're worshiping God and you're not worshiping. This shows you're worshiping coffee. If you can't set that coffee mug down for 30 minutes of worship, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
For example, I thought of, I would never do this, but I thought of, at least doing a film or to express it, to sit there with a bottle of Jack Daniels in my hand, one bottle.
Oh God, you are awful. It's true. It's
have a bottle of Jack Daniels in one hand and singing, praising God. And I'm sorry, I can't put my Jack Daniels down for 30 minutes to worship the Lord.
Yeah, here's the thing that I would do, and I'm not trying to
way off.
I'm not trying to point the finger back at you, Eddie, but I think you would agree this. Be careful that you aren't so busy judging others too.
Oh no.
Because you don't know what that woman's going through. You don't know everything that's happening with her holding her cup up. Would you have been less offended if she had her arms down?
Well, yeah, if she didn't have coffee in it. if her arms weren't down because she had to drink her coffee.
Yeah, I don't. See, I just don't know.
No, what I'm saying is, okay, see, you don't need to mix. In other words, if your coffee is that important, go out in the foyer and drink coffee in the foyer and drink coffee during worship.
Yeah.
When it comes to worship, it's about worship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's just the thing. I look at it and I see it and like, what can I learn from what I'm seeing? Not who can I condemn for what they're doing.
No, I'm not condemning that person.
I know. I didn't mean to use those harsher terms.
No. What offended me more than the person doing that is a church that doesn't speak to the situation of that, or doesn't speak to people reading news, sports, stock reports, whatever, on the phone while the sermon is going on, or whatever. Because to me, it doesn't do any good to have people just sitting there.
Oh yeah.
And here's why. Let me talk to you people. Here's why. Okay, here's why this is important. There are kids in the church a lot of times, and they look around and they see this, and so they say, "Oh, look at them! They're on their phones. I can take my PlayStation. I don't have to pay attention.
Yeah,
I can have. She's got her drink in worship. Worship is not that big of a deal. Lifting holy hands. Lifting holy hands does not mean holding something in it. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Worship is not that serious of a thing if I can have whatever I want to.
Right.
And I don't have to let it go. In other words, I don't have to. I think of, I've often, my thing was, could you not tarry for 1 hour? Could you not tarry for 30 minutes? In other words, could you not put that coffee cup down for 30 minutes to worship? In other words, that coffee is so important to you that you can't put it down for 30 minutes to just focus on me, worship, sing, then sit down and drink coffee, or go outside, or wait till the service is over and then get all the coffee you want when you eat.
Right.
That, to me, that's what it is, because as soon as you go down that road, and coffee is just, to me, is just symbolic of the other things that we allow to come into get in the way of true worship and true service on a Sunday.
What I'm getting to and answer that, and to me, you make a valid point, absolutely, but I think I'm going to make one as well. When I first moved to Tulsa, this was even before I got married. I came down a few months early, get ready, and then went back, married her, brought her back down here. And I am many miles away from a little Pentecostal church that I was attending. So I'm going to Sunday night service that used to be a thing. The Pentecostals did. And I got a flat tire on the interstate coming on 244 across the river. And I'm on the side of the road, my church closed, and trying to change a tire. All my tires are bald. I was poor, and a couple of cars passed me with their Jesus bumper stickers and stuff, and they were in too big of a hurry to get to church. I finally got to church about 20 minutes late, and I got the kind of, that look, like, you're late, young man, And I'm like, at least I'm at church. Are you judging the people that aren't here? Yeah, don't go to Sunday night service, and I'm like, get off of your judgment. If there's something you can learn from it, fine, then you learn from me being late. But you don't know what I just went through to get here. A lot of people have just turned around and gone home at that point because their hands are all full of grease and,
Right. No, see, you had a legitimate, and it was a one-time thing.
Yeah, but people don't know that, and they will judge just on appearance.
Oh, no, right.
Yeah.
There's the other side. But when it becomes every
exactly.
I mean, this was about the third or fourth week.
Yes, I know.
Same for
That's why I say you've got a valid point, but I also want to just bring a little bit of balance to be careful not to just assume each individual circumstance.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like I said, when I got to this and posted this, it was after, you know, years actually of seeing people, you know, sitting there during worship, sitting or standing or during the sermon, reading news or sports, you know, on their phone.
Oh yeah.
And then the coffee, you know, I'll be honest, we really probably shouldn't even allow coffee or drink into the thing. You know, I mean, I know people think I'm legalistic, but honestly, what did you come to?
Okay.
What did you come to see today? What did you come to get today?
Okay.
Out of this, you know, and here's what's funny, you know. Yeah, here's what's really strange. Most of you have seen Jesus Revolution. Many of you have seen Jesus Revolution. I got saved in the Jesus Revolution. Okay, our church was an offshoot of Calvary. Here's what's really funny. Okay, we used to have young mothers, wives, you know, because a bunch of hippies, getting saved. They're in halter tops, you know, halter tops, and so a lot of them had young babies, and so you got girls sitting on the front row, or and they're nursing their babies in church, and you know, people sitting on the floor, you know, but everything was always, when it came to worship, there was no nursing going on. There was no sitting on the floor. There was nothing. It was focused on God.
Yep.
It was focused on worship. And these were a bunch of hippies that had no rules. They were as rebellious as anything, but they understood that when it came time to serve God, to worship God, we're here about God. When it came to listening to Chuck Smith preach, or Fred Walker, or whoever it was, that was the focus of our attention.
Yep.
Because we knew what we had come from. And I'm just afraid that these are the things that have it's been a slow slide.
It is. Yeah. And we're seeing the external manifestations of that slippage.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The external is not the real thing that concerns. It's what's inside that has led to the external manifestation.
I can't add to that, Eddie. That's the best place to leave that point, I think. Yeah. So I want to tell you, if you missed this, which other than 27 of you in Oklahoma, the rest of you missed this great opportunity to mix it up with a ton of candidates for city, county, and state office in Tulsa. Tulsa young professionals, typros, they refer to themselves, had a get together, and every candidate was there, or they sent a surrogate. And in our case, Eddie, you already had a speaking engagement to 700 plus people. So you sent me down there to represent you. It was at the Central Library down in the auditorium in the basement. And my goodness, I had one-on-one time with anybody I wanted to. In fact, we did. We had an election for mayor, and the top two go to a runoff. A person's dear friend of ours, we respect him greatly, Brent Van Norman, lost out by a few hundred votes, leaving us with a couple of Democrats now, Karen Keith and Monroe Nichols. And I talked to both of them, and guess what? They are so focused on presenting their message for Vision of Tulsa to the Brent Van Norman conservative base that in the next 2 weeks, they'll be sitting in that chair. Next week, Karen Keith, county commissioner right now. She was with the Bill of Fortune administration before that. Before that, head of the Brookside Association and anchor of Channel 2 News, one of the top-rated news anchors. She's going to be here. Monroe Nichols, former football player at TU. In fact, that's why he couldn't be here today. He's at the Army game, and he actually has a whole bunch of things lined up, but he'll be here in 2 weeks. We've got to work it out because he's got to be at the Boo Ha Ha parade at 11, but then he'll come here afterwards. So, yeah. Actually, Karen Keith started that, the Brookside Association Merchants, and she organized that association. But anyway, so, and actually, no, yeah, next week's Karen Keith. The following week is Monroe, the 19th. And then the final October broadcast, we're going to have Jayme Fowler, the city councilor, District 9, who's up for re-election. Jayme and I were talking about, this whole Dan Boren thing. Okay, so now we're segueing back to Dan. About the original, what Oklahoma politics used to be, conservative and Democrat. I mean, they overwhelmingly controlled government for the first 90 years. But there were a few strongholds of republicanism in the state. Up in the Enid area, the farmers along the Kansas border, those were Republican areas, rural Republican. But the only real urban Republican stronghold was Brookside of Tulsa. And I remember, I keep quoting Don Rube on this. He says, the problem with the Republican Party then was they thought Tulsa County started at Utica Square and ended at I-44. Because if you're a Republican, chances are you were within that parameter. Now, that's highbrow liberalism, rich liberals. And many of them their wealth is through government connections or health sciences, or they're trial attorneys, So,
or there's a lot of legacy oil money. Yeah.
And third and fourth generation. And it's all about, I'll just call it fascism. Was corporatism, as Mussolini called it, the merging of commerce and government picking winners and losers. And so you want to position yourself on the inside to get that government graft in contracts. So, yeah, that's a part of the deal. So Jayme Fowler is going to be here. I said, Jayme, I have no clue how you became the District 9 counselor. He looked at me, he says, it wasn't easy because Jayme Fowler does not hide his conservatism, but he eloquently presents it. It is really good. So get ready, folks, and tell your friends. I mean, we got a coup here. Who else has a long form, hour-long discussion with the two top candidates for mayor?
Yes, I'm really excited about getting an opportunity to interview them.
And these two Democrats are willing to be grilled by Eddie Huff. This is going to be cool. Monroe is really excited about it because he really feels a connection with you. He just says, I love Eddie. He says, it's just been great dealing with it. And I said, well, don't look for Eddie to make an endorsement on this. But
won't be endorsing anybody.
Right. But we felt it's so important to conservative base that you make an informed choice. It may not be your optimal and ideal choice,
right,
but it's a choice that falls in your lap. Please get informed.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important, these two. And the thing with Monroe, I'm able to speak with him.
Mm-hmm.
Karen and I, when she first got elected to the county commission,
mm-hmm.
I spoke with her a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think actually it was one time. I went down there to see Terry Simonson, who was working for the mayor at the time.
Yeah.
And she, we spoke at that time, but I really, to be honest, I haven't spoken to her since, other than I was recommended for a board position, and she interviewed me for a couple of minutes, and that was it. So I don't have much of a connection there at all. And Monroe, to be honest, he and Pat Campbell were actually pretty good friends. They became good
Yeah.
friends. But I really didn't know the guy. And then I met him at one of the meet and greets.
Yeah.
That I think it was a Hispanic group had
Yes.
a meet and greet over in East Tulsa. And I was there. That's the first time I ever met the guy. And I found him, to be a pretty charming, nice guy.
Yeah.
And we spoke for a while there. And then, but since then, we've met each other. And so we have always had a very cordial, everybody will tell you he's a very nice, very polite, cordial guy.
Yeah.
So I think you probably found that too.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody that's ever met him, he's one of the nicest people you will ever meet. I mean, he was, as they said, he was raised right.
Yes, his mother actually was there at the deal, and so yeah. And now I tell you, you're going to have liberal policies he's going to push. I have dealt with that. I had him come speak to a legislative town hall on mental health. I want to make sure I had Republicans and Democrats, and he was my token Democrat that time. But no, he does not want an argument. He wants a solution. I will say, and I will have him give him I think he got his start in government actually working Kathy Taylor's administration. So the legitimate question, and here's the thing, folks, email us, freshblackcoffee@gmail.com. Right? Okay. Give us your suggested questions, but don't be offended if we don't ask your question or ask it in the way you want it.
200 questions, we don't have enough time to ask.
But here's the thing. What I told both of them is give us your vision of what you think, we're going to have some agreement on.
Right, exactly. Here's the thing I want people to understand. We're not going to do what liberal outlets would do. We're not going to ambush anyone.
You're right.
We're not going to make this a hostile environment, which they would do. Okay, we want to be fair. We want to give them an opportunity to present their case, and we'll ask them honest, legitimate questions that you want answered. But we're going to do it in a very fair-minded manner. Okay,
yeah.
So just so you know, we're not going to develop our questions in some kind of tricky way that we can try to trap anyone. Okay.
Yeah.
So please don't send us any trick questions or trap questions or anything. Just make it a straight question about issues you have regarding, and it needs to be about the city. There's only certain things. Honestly, the city really doesn't have any authority in the area of education, which is an area that we need to make clear, and I want them to be clear on, because there are some things that certain candidates like to propose talking about education when the city really doesn't have any authority to have any direct influence on education. That's a state and federal issue. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but please do give us your questions, but don't be offended because we can only ask so many, and we want to prioritize the ones that we feel are really important, that we really need answers to about furthering Tulsa.
Yeah. Let me make a point here. I think this is a great time to interject it. There are values and then there are strategies. Sometimes, Mr. and Miss Conservative, you have a conservative value and a particular strategy to bring your values forward. That your strategy isn't necessarily the only means by which to bring the ends you want. What we're trying to do, Eddie said, we're not going to do the gotcha thing. Here's why. Strategically, when they clam up, we don't get much information. Whereas if they feel free to open up and elaborate, and that, then we get the truest picture. And a lot of times they will expose things that we wouldn't otherwise see. So this is our strategy, is to get them to open up, to really explain in depth. Am I right, Eddie, on that?
Yeah, just feel comfortable to realize that we truly only want to really know what is your vision for the city and how do you propose we get there.
Yeah.
In the limited time that you have. And that's speaking of 4 years. So we're not here to try to sabotage you because, to be honest, we don't have a Republican in the race.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing to, and we really want to know of the two of them, which one will serve the best interest of all of Tulsa, not the Democrats' interest, not independents, not Republicans, all of Tulsa.
Right.
And so that's what we want to know. And we're not going to do that by asking Republican questions, asking Democrat questions, asking independent questions.
Right.
We want just...
Or ask them when did they quit beating their spouse or things like that,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I think you get the picture.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to elaborate anymore. It's going to be very fair and hopefully good, relaxed interviews.
Yeah.
Discussions.
So that's kind of a headline here. I'm pretty excited about it. And but we got to get on to, what happened with the Hurricane Helene? And now, where is our relief money for the tens of thousands of homeless? Businesses shut down. I mean, even our tax base, the federal government now is going to take a hit on our tax base because we don't have the money to get these mom and pops businesses back up and running.
Yeah, and apparently FEMA is claiming we don't have any money left in FEMA.
And what did we do with that money?
We flew in immigrants. We spent it on immigrants coming into our country.
Right.
And why did here's the question I have, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What reason do we, and will we have for bringing more immigrants into the country?
Yeah.
In other words, what natural disasters are happening everywhere else around the world that is calling for this influx of migrants?
Right, but what they're claiming is political asylum, not economic.
Yeah, but what political situations are going on around the world necessitating the influx of all of these?
Right, and when is it our obligation to go fly planes there and hold up signs? Anyone want to come to America? Just claim that you're being persecuted and we'll fly you in. We'll buy you a house in Springfield, Ohio. And there's cats.
There's lots to eat. They have a lot of cats in Ohio. No,
yeah.
When I was in Germany in the 80s, and we did a lot of work. We worked mainly with the U.S. military, but helping them. But it was ministry work, not official work. We were a para church group, Youth with Initiatives, a mission organization, but we did ministry to the military, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But then I also did relief work in East Africa, South Africa, and so forth.
Yeah.
But anyway, at that time, Germany was bringing immigrants in, but the way it was, and it's almost a picture of what's happening here. So what would happen there, the way they were doing it, or it was being done to Germany, it was like a trick. And the communists were doing this, and this was before the fall of the wall.
Okay.
Yeah. So what would happen, and they were coming, a lot of them from Bangladesh and India.
Mm-hmm.
So what they would fly them into East Germany, and then they would give them a free ticket, fly them to East Germany. They get off the plane, they put them on buses, give them back.
Who's the they again? Who's
the Soviets?
Soviets are doing this.
Soviets. East Germans, Russia, and
okay.
So they would fly them into East Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And they put them on buses and send them to the Brandenburg Gate.
Oh wow!
And then they would send them across and tell them to ask for asylum in West Germany.
Wow!
And so the Germans had all of these immigrants coming into Germany, and they had these immigrant camps.
Okay. This is huge. This is the first I've heard this. So what he's saying is it was a Soviet tactic during the Cold War to flood the West with immigrants seeking asylum.
Right. And so then what they would do, they would keep them in Germany in these camps.
In West Germany.
West Germany. And from there, then they were seeking asylum in England or the U.S.
Sure.
And
I'm sure Germany, West Germany, was helping to get rid of a bunch.
Right.
To get other countries to take them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah. And I remember we had this one family we were ministering to, and he had been a doctor in Bangladesh, and he wanted so badly to go to America, and then the word came down that they really didn't have a choice where they could go, and so they had told him, nope, you can go to England.
Right.
And he was so disappointed because they wanted to go to America. They just knew they wanted to go to America, but nope, you've been chosen to go to England. So they sent his family to England. So he had to decide to go to England. But see, from England, then they could still later. It was easier than that was like one stop. Once they got assimilated into England,
yeah,
and got English citizenship, they could always then come to America.
But in 79 and 80, we saw that with the Muriel boat lift, where Cuba took their most hardened criminals and all of their mentally insane and put them on boats to go to Miami. And what they really did was they exploited Jimmy Carter's touchy-feely human rights campaign and basically put it in his face. And this is the thing that Trump is right now. He's in Butler, Missouri again, saying this is what the other nations are doing is they're emptying out their problems. They're mentally ill and they're prisoners.
You're making me think of that video. They're eating the dog.
Yes.
They're eating the cats. Have you seen the video? This guy, he made a video and it's got Trump speaking.
Yeah.
And it's showing.
Yeah, that's right.
The dog's going like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got cats popping up.
Yeah.
Like this. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're da 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 da. And it's a whole song. And then in the back, you got cats singing and and dogs barking. I mean, it's so well done. I don't know who did it, but
so how many has GT Bynum brought here? Because we've got an animal shelter that we need to clean out.
But we are. I think we broke around. If it's not finished, I have to look more deeply into it. I really do need to. An 80-unit homeless shelter.
Oh yeah, that was like a month ago.
Mohawk Park, right? We haven't covered it. I want to totally deep dive into it to really speak about this. But here's the deal: it's an 80-unit homeless shelter.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, now that you got 80 units there, is it going to cause more people to come because they found out that however many 80 families have gotten this, and are the people going to really appreciate it? What will it look like?
Yeah.
Expected to build more of these, and how many more? And in
the words of Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come.
See, that's my fear, and that's one of the things that I am really wanting to try to stop. If we want to deal with the homeless or the poverty stricken people, let it be done through the private agencies.
Yes,
that's my thing. That's the Salvation Army. Let Feed the Children. Let John 3:16. We've got several private agencies that know how to deal with, especially the drug addicted and so forth. Teen Challenge. You've got many agencies out there that deal with this. They've got the professional counselors and things to deal with it. And honestly, in speaking with some of them, they know that there are people that are working in the system.
Yeah, I got a news flash. Homelessness does not cause mental illness. Mental illness largely leads to homelessness. And if you don't address the core causes, all you're doing is just subsidizing more and more and not getting rid of the problem.
And a lot of it is not truly mental illness. In other words, you have the freeloaders, what you call it.
In the addictive population.
Right.
Alcoholism, drug addiction.
Well, no, but I'm talking about people that just are out there grifters.
Right.
And we need to and see what we do when you have organizations like John 3:16, Salvation Army, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
They can tell the difference between the people who have the mental issues, or the true needs.
Yeah, serious mental illness.
Like the true medical issue, or the people that are playing the game.
There's people with just personality disorders that are not a mental illness in the clinical sense of the term. They're just selfish, or they're a narcissist, or just anti.
People that are just out there collecting money on
or they're just criminal. They got evil intent.
That too, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing, have you noticed now with the city, the city has come up with a new ordinance that it's okay to stand on the street corners as long as you have an orange vest on. Did you know that?
Yeah, I was talking to a neighbor last night about it. And he just said he was mad, because here he is paying his mortgage every month. He's working a full-time job plus mowing the neighbor's yard just to make extra money. And he's mad as hell about this.
Well, you're going to see him popping up everywhere because now there's nothing to stop that. All you got to do, I've actually thought about getting an orange vest.
Yeah.
And standing out there.
Yeah. Back in the 80s, a guy I was at 51st in Harvard is sitting there on top of his pickup and says, "We'll work for stocks."
It's like John Stossel did.
Yeah.
What is it said? What does it say? Something for no money wanted. No, was it? Don't need money for food, only beer.
Yeah, there you go.
And people were actually giving him
sure.
money.
Yeah,
because money. And he actually advertised. I can't remember exactly how he was wording it.
Yeah,
but it was something about that he was collecting money.
Yeah,
so he could buy beer.
Yeah, I got in trouble at a home Bible fellowship when I had to address this because they wanted us as a group to get involved in some of these things, and I just said, "You're not doing it for them. You're doing it to make you feel good."
Yeah, my church actually, they used to do the backpacks and turkeys for Thanksgiving, and finally, when the pastor said, I think he realized that they were getting burned and used.
Yeah,
and he said, "We're not doing that anymore."
Right, but there's huge need for people who, through no fault of their own, are stricken with serious mental illness, and we have wiped out the infrastructure we have to deal with it. Vic Regalado and I met a couple months ago in his office, and he says, there's a lawsuit right now that the Attorney General of Oklahoma, the state's getting sued on behalf of a class of people that are stuck in jail that won't even get a court date until they can get sane enough to assist in their own defense. And the jails are doing nothing for their mental health, but they're ordered up to Veneta to our forensic, the Department of Corrections has a mental health facility. And they're waiting in the county jail many times as much or more than a year to begin their mental health treatment. And Chef Regalado says it is such a violation of basic civil rights to indefinitely imprison somebody and he won't even get a court date because the judge says, I ain't talking to him until he's sane. Think about what we're doing here. Yeah. And the Attorney General, Gentner Drummond, says, I ain't defending the state in this because it's indefensible. I mean, he's on the plaintiff's side in this several $100 million lawsuit because it's been going on for a long time. I mean,
here's the problem with that. Okay. You know who's going to get that money?
Well, attorneys.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's the thing. It's something that needs to be fixed. And guess what it takes to fix it? It takes an attorney saying, you don't do this anymore. Because look, you and I have been that voice, the Elliott Williams family, clients of yours. You know, it's horrendous what's happening. If you're not going to do anything for them, then don't just lock them up and deprive them of their civil rights. Because at least when they're out on the street, some well-meaning person with a solution might actually help them, because just locking them up isn't helping them.
Yeah, but at the same time, leaving them on the street, in Elliott's case, for example, he had become a danger to himself and others.
Right.
Right. So you can't leave them on the street.
Yes. And this is here's where this goes back to our original problem. And I've been working for much of the last 10 years on it. There is a civil commitment process that does not involve charging somebody with a crime. See, this lawsuit has to do with people.
We're on the same page on that. Okay. Yes. We're using the wrong tactic to. Right,
I'm going there. It's just I need to explain to people there are two ways of using our public mental health infrastructure and the courts. One treats him as a criminal, another treats him as a person that needs help. Okay, I have people very close to me who we've done the second of the two. It's a civil commitment thing. And that's what I want to explain, because the sheriff gets involved in both, the courts get involved in both.
Right. See, here's what I would suggest. Okay, to me, there is a solution. Okay, one is that we create the institutions again. Somehow, whoever decided to get rid of insane asylums or sanatoriums.
This is exactly where I'm going.
Whoever got rid of that, it was a mistake.
Yes,
we need to invest the money we're investing in those again. Wherever they took that money and reinvested it, we're spending more now probably than we did when we had the sanatorium. Now, once we've done that, we have the facility. We do two things. We arrest all of them. But so you're either guilty of vagrancy and creating a nuisance, or you have a mental illness and you will be committed to one of these places. So what it will do, it will be a deterrent to the people who are trying to milk the system. On the one hand, it will stop them and or the drug dealers and drug users and so forth. And the people who need the help, we will be able to truly identify them and have them committed and get the help they need. But we've got to stop this stuff where we're just leaving them all out on the street, allowing them to have homeless camps, set up homeless camps everywhere, and become a public nuisance. Right.
This is exactly where I'm going. I put together an interim study, got the legislative leaders to approve it. I got Regalado to come speak, our mental health judge, Judge Pace, and several others. What we used to have was a diversion. Because we had the public mental health infrastructure where you could get an assessment in a bed, it allowed the cop out on the beat to say, hey, Tom, you're really causing a disturbance here in the neighborhood. Now, I could arrest you, but what I really think you need is a good assessment, because there's some things just not quite in balance up here. If you're willing, I'll take you here for... You won't have a criminal record. You're just going to get a doctor to look at you. They can give an overall picture of where your health is at, and you guys can make a healthcare decision from there. Because we went, I mean, Veneta got shut down 22 years ago. I talked to Governor Keating, former Governor Keating, about it. He said, look, I was dealing with it more as an organized labor issue. And he said, yes, we were supposed to put in these community mental health facilities, and he blamed Brad Henry. He says, I was just leaving office. Brad Henry just didn't prioritize it. But we got down to 349 beds. Veneta at one time had 2,600 beds, and it was just one of 4 state mental health facilities. So, left us with just Griffin, and then our Department of Mental Health decided to shut down 5/8 of it and just rent it out to private mental health corporations, hospitals. And so cops and courts could not access the majority of those beds that the taxpayers paid for. And the Department of Mental Health was turning it into a cash cow that they didn't have to report to the legislature about. And so we're down to 349 beds. And I had a 2.5-hour sit down with a top level of the Department of Mental Health one day. And we went through all this. And then something good happened as a result of COVID. The federal government giving us this COVID recovery money. And Kyle Hilbert told me about it after it passed. He's now going to be the next speaker. That our own John Hayes, Senator Hayes, made a deal that the Tulsa Center for Behavioral Health, which only was operating like 52 beds, it's the old doctor's hospital facility, which really could have handled over 200. Right. It started out as a private contractor. Grand Lake Mental Health had like 160 beds, but when the state just kept cutting down, now we're down to 52 beds. Well, we're going to replace that now. It is a horrible place. I know a lot of people who are in there. It's worse than a lot of the county jails. If it were me, I'd rather be in the mental health pod at the county jail than be in that, But we've got a new hospital. It's being built right there by the Civic Center, downtown Convention Center, that west parking lot there. So in OSU Medical Center is going to help run it. They're going to staff it with a lot of their college med school interns, right? And so we got this great partnership going on with OU and OSU so that a lot of these students get a lot of their hours of residency done. So that's coming online. I'm trying to be hopeful here, people, because what we've got to do is have a diversion that is legitimate so that the cop out on the beat, when he sees somebody really and truly just has a mental health need, even though they're not professional, they're not. So, I mean, I help train a lot of these cops on mental health things. So I know this, and they can truly get people a place where they start getting treatment by day 3, if not sooner. Because you can't force medication on somebody in the Tulsa jail.
Right. By the way, I just noticed my mic has been on pause. I don't know how long. So I
was hearing you.
Yeah, but that's the cue.
Yeah, but it's still here. It's just not on your chip.
Okay, well, we'll hope.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's, I know I went long, but that's the big picture of how we do diversion.
Right. No, but yeah. No, I know for the local police, the homeless situation is really something of concern to them. Mm-hmm. And neighborhoods, I know in my district in particular, the people are really concerned. It's become a real issue, and it's going to become a bigger issue if it's not dealt with. And we've got to deal with this issue. Well, and an even bigger issue once the word gets out that we're building houses for them here, apartments for them. Right, exactly. And the orange jackets, that you can panhandle legally in Tulsa. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is I spoke at Type Pros. Speaking of Type Pros again, this has been probably 5-6 years ago. It's been quite a while ago, maybe even longer. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I remember it was just one of these deals where it was a hostile crowd.
Yeah.
It wasn't some friendly.
That's what I was afraid of going there the other night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not everyone there, not everyone. I mean, there are people. The idea of it is to take the young it's supposed to be like a junior version of the chamber.
Yeah.
Is what it is. I think the chamber actually started it and supports them. But anyway, and my whole deal is, what you feed grows.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things where I was just speaking to them and saying, look, we want to have compassion on, like, you and I talk about it all the time. And we do want to have compassion with people who have a true need. Mm-hmm. But we cannot just overlook the fact that there are people that will abuse the system.
Yeah.
And back at that Type Rose meeting, they were bragging about the fact that Tulsa is the second, at that time, the second gay-friendliest city in America.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid we've also are trying to become the second homeless-friendliest city in America. In other words, it's like we're trying to compete with San Francisco in everything. Mm-hmm. We're trying to emulate the Bay Area.
Well, we even have their people serving our city council right now.
Well, yeah.
For another month.
And one of our major philanthropists who lives half the time, at least half the time, if not most of the time, out there. But, and so I don't want Tulsa to become San Francisco.
Yeah. Tulsa
has its own unique South Midwest. We have this kind of struggle within ourselves. Are we a Midwest or are we Southwest?
Yeah.
We're not truly Southwest because we're not Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, but we're not truly Midwest because we don't fit in with, Illinois, Ohio, and Indiana. So, and we're not South. So
yeah,
we're almost kind of a unique. We're like a cowlick in a hair.
There you go.
we're a cowlick.
Cowlick of the South Plains.
Yeah, there we are. The cowlick has somebody's going to use that.
Yeah, but I when I first moved to Tulsa, I said Tulsa is a northern city in a southern state.
Yeah, I think that fits. And when I came here, I've shared this the other night. I remember coming here from Germany. Tom Newman, Impact Productions, brought me here to go to work for them. And I remember riding down Riverside. This is no joke. We were riding down Riverside, and I remember the window was down, and we were riding along the river. I don't know if there was water in there or not. I don't remember, but I remember just thinking this. Because I had an opportunity to go to Dallas, Nashville, or here. Those were the three cities that I was being recruited to. And I remember thinking, or it was like the Lord was speaking to me. This is where you should raise your children.
Yeah, there you go.
This is where I want you to raise your children. Yeah. And just going down Riverside, and it was just such a pleasant, it just felt so good to me, and that's what led me to Tulsa. And, when we came here with nothing. And I remember we lived in the basement of Roger Nix, this family, Roger Nix. We lived in the basement of their home for a month.
Oh, wow.
And Carly Rush, Carly, she back then she was on 106.9. And then later she worked with us over at KFAQ.
Yeah, I met her one day.
And now she's on whatever it is now. It's a mix, one of the mixed stations, but an oldie station. In fact, I saw her the other night at the fair. I went to the fair and to see 38 Special.
Yeah.
And Carly introduce the band and all. But anyway, but it was funny because she's special to our children because every morning we would wake up to Cardi Rush. My son couldn't even pronounce her name. My son, who's the Coast Guard pilot now, and he called her Cardi. Cardi Rush is on. But anyway, but it was just such a special time. Tulsa had such a great promise. It was such a vibrant. The oil market was still big. Everything was still good. This was like 92. Yeah. Everything was still promising. Yeah. And it was a beautiful city. It still is really a beautiful city, but it's gone down so much.
Yeah. It's diversified. It used to be so dependent on the oil industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just really gone down in many ways.
Let me ask you this, because you've lived in California, and the way the city, once you get past, the downtown loop, to me, it feels very California in that it's not at all pedestrian friendly. You need a car to get everywhere because California is that way.
Right.
And, it was during the Dewey Bartlett years that we started putting sidewalks in along arterial streets, at least on one side, because otherwise legally, in fact, Paul Tay fought this thing is if there's not a sidewalk, I have a right to be in the road, even if it's Lewis Avenue.
Well, Paul can be happy because there's a sidewalk now all the way down to at least 91st.
Yeah.
If not.
Well, some of that is to get federal money, grants to help out with some of your urban renewal. That became one of the federal standards. We're not going to help you repave Lewis Avenue unless when we're done, there's a sidewalk.
Right.
So that.
Right. And I don't know what they did with that money on Memorial because it's not repaved.
Yeah,
I call it rechunked.
One of the things I want to say, remember Mick Cornett ran for governor.
Oh yeah, I do remember Mick.
6 years ago. Before that, he was mayor of Oklahoma City. One of the brilliant things that Oklahoma City did on their urban interstates, highways, and arterial streets, particularly the highways, is their road construction took place in the overnight hours. And where they could bring the barrels out at about 8 p.m. once all the rush hour traffic is done and limit the lanes, and they could get a lot of their work done.
Well, see, that's what I don't understand. I drive down, you pick a place.
Memorial.
Right. There's cones out there, but there's nobody out there.
Right.
Day or night.
Right.
They're not working day or night. I'm saying, where are they?
Yeah.
And they'll sit there and they'll have the cones out there. To me, if you're not working, don't shut a lane down.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous,
especially weekends. They ain't going to work the weekend.
Yeah. So remove them and then get the crew out there early and then re-put the cones out. Don't put the people in stress needlessly. Okay. Like by my offer, right here, right outside here.
Yeah.
When you go out now, you're I go down here because it's blocked off all the way up here, so it's easier. You'd have to jump a lane and try to get out there, and down here you at least have 2 lanes to get in. So it makes no sense. Why do we have or we will have construction going on in 2 different areas and nobody working at either one?
Yeah. Do you remember what Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, got in trouble for? He wanted to stick it to the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Cory Booker. And the way he did it was the Newark roads going over the Hudson into New York City. They put the barrels out and limited them down to 1 lane and made everybody mad as hell. And they blamed Cory Booker, the mayor of that town, when it was really the governor's people. Now, somehow the governor skated on that, but some of his staffers took the hit. So my point I'm getting out of that is they know that it harms the people, and the people will take out their outrage on local government for all the barrels and limited traffic. So I think our next couple of guests here we got in who are running for mayor, I'm wondering how cognizant they are, because it's not the city councilor who gets to tell the road construction management, because it's executive management. It's the mayor who heads up the agencies that says, okay, here's how you guys are going to handle barrels.
Yeah, but I don't want to get too into it because I will be involved in that, but there's a little more involved than
well, the city councilor gets to talk about the appropriation of funds and stuff, but then how the progress happens,
right?
And oversight,
right? But the city councilor can influence the mayor to get
right.
For example, I'm in a tough election. Can you get him on my street?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And because I remember I was coach of a homeschool tennis team, and we're using the city parks courts. God, their nets are horrible, big holes in them. And I'm supposed to have this varsity tournament here. And I don't know if that ball went under the cable or over, but it went through, and
over, under,
we
around,
couldn't get anything until a month before the mayor's race. And all of a sudden, man, whatever we needed, we got a month before the mayor's election, because the mayor controlled the purse strings.
Right.
So anyway, what I'm getting at in this, because really John Smoligo really helped me understand.
County commissioner.
Yeah, he was county commissioner, but the county commission at that time said, John, you're the roads guy. Okay. They each specialized in things. Now it's more fiefdoms. We're going to divide up, and it's almost like you got 3 county commissioners running 3 sub-counties in some ways. And what they do, if they got to move utilities, they got to move stormwater drainage, then they got to tear up, and then they've got to start pouring and putting rebar. Each one of those processes has a different contractor many times, or subcontractor, and they're given a certain carved out calendar space to do it, because months in advance, they've got to figure out, well, we could have a week of rain, we could have a flood, we could have this and that. And that guy comes in there, and he's got all kinds of road projects going on where he's moving his crews from one place to another. He just knows he has to get this done sometime within there. It may only take him 5 days, but he's got 15 days on the calendar to get it done. If he gets it done the first 5 days, it still sits for the next 10 with nobody working on it. And that's our problem, is if we had an efficient way to say, okay, once you sign off, we're actually going to give you a bonus if you're ahead of time. But in order for you to get that bonus, you have to also be willing to move up when it comes to you. So you get everybody to move up instead of saying, nope, I booked my manpower labor for this time.
Well, and also, what about penalties when you're late?
Exactly.
They're supposed to be there, but are we enforcing those?
Yeah. And then the dirty little secret on this is, when we have a bond proposal for capital improvement, and much of it can be on infrastructure, and it goes to vote of the people, there's a campaign and there's money put in. And guess who puts most of that money in that campaign? The road construction companies. It's part of their operating budget, is they have to put money into that. And I'm not saying that elected officials look at how much you've been giving to their campaigns, whether or not that you get a contract, but it's an awfully interesting coincidence. It's the people who play that game, who throw that money into the political system, that get the contracts.
Right.
Is that honest integrity in government? I don't think so. But
no, I agree. But it is what it is, though. I mean, it is the system we live with, and
Yeah.
it's the people. The people have to decide. It's like, our side, our guys
Mhm.
are in. We've not really discussed this, and that is dealing term limits.
Mhm.
I think I know where you line up. I think you're for term limits.
Pragmatically.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because, I believe we have term limits, and they're called elections.
Yeah.
If you don't want somebody in there, you get to muster up the will of the people to get rid of the bad person.
And that's an idealistic thing, and I agree with it.
Yeah, but that's the way the system's set up.
It is.
Because, and we see the ramifications a lot of times when the guy we like is term limited and gone, and then we don't have a good viable replacement. And then we're stuck and everybody's crying. Oh no, what are we going to do now? See, that's the other side. All of these good ideas, for example, Democrats were excited about being able to kind of work the whole Senate thing with the filibuster and with this and then all of a sudden, so they worked it to where that would work for them. Then all of a sudden, the Republicans said, "Okay, then we'll do it," and then we did it, and we were able to get the Senate on our side. So then all of a sudden they were like, "Well, wait a minute, but it's too late."
Yeah.
So this is my plug for the U.S. Constitution in its original form. The intent of the Constitution in its original form, not the way some people have interpreted it. I think that U.S. Constitution is the most perfect document that has ever been designed by man. Yeah, it is. And that's why I'm against the con.
Right. And in federal government, there are no term limits. Okay.
Right.
Oklahoma passed one and it got swatted down by the Supreme Court. We tried to do that with our congressional delegation. But to your point, Eddie, do you know for the first 100 and some years, we didn't have term limits on state elected officials statewide, like the governor. Do you know for the first 75 years, we didn't have a governor serve more than one term as governor, even though he could have run for re-election. Nobody successfully did it until I think George and I.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. We didn't have term limits.
We had elections.
We'd had elections, and yet it worked. It worked.
Now here's my other point, because I'm arguing your side on this thing.
Right.
Once a guy is what we call lame duck, which means he can't run again.
Right.
That's why we bastardize lame duck to become meaning that he no longer has the incentive to do the will of the people because you don't have to worry about getting reelected. It became a leverage. I see this especially with our legislature. The last term in a legislator's career, he's busy trying to find a golden hammock, some state appointment to something.
Right.
Or his next gig. Like there's only 2 counties where it's lucrative to become a county commissioner, and that's Oklahoma County and Tulsa County. The rest of them, they don't pay squat. You make more money in the legislature than you do.
Same thing happens federally.
Yeah. Well, federally, I think they become lobbyists.
Right.
After.
Or they get some, I know people that, end up working in the Pentagon or for this group or that group.
Yeah. Like Bridenstine went on to NASA. That's an example of it. And now he's a lobbyist because, well, anyway, so, but this is my problem is the lawmakers in their last term in the legislature, almost worthless because they're running their own personal agenda or paying back people who they owe favors to, who own them, maybe have owned them ever since they got in, but now it's just blatant in your face. Or like one guy who's one of the top legislators and he gets a staffer pregnant. His wife leaves him, and he goes from making $40,000 a year to running a big trust agency making $240,000 or something like that. And you're like, we just rewarded this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that say what you will about Jim Inhofe, but he stayed in all of those years, and he never did that. And every time I saw him, he was truly fighting for Oklahoma. I'll tell you, I have to tell you the story. And I was pretty much against Jim Inhofe initially. And because I listened to people talking, oh, Jim Inhofe this, Jim Inhofe that, and so I was saying, oh yeah, he must be not a very good senator, And then I went to Jenks Chamber of Commerce meeting one morning, and he was the speaker. And he explained how earmarks work. I was opposed to earmarks. And then he explained that if you don't earmark, what happens to the money? It goes into a big pot, and the president basically can do whatever he wants with the money. And so, say Oklahoma sends $1 to Washington, and then if we don't designate where the funds go for our state or whatever, then basically the president gets it. And at that time, we were getting 63 cents back for every $1 we sent to Washington. We were only getting 63 cents back. But through earmarks, he was able to get us up to 93 cents on the $1 back. Now, the danger in earmarks is not that you earmark it to come back to your state. It's what you have it come back for.
Yes.
And that's the problem with earmarks. It's who you're electing the right person that will do the right thing with the earmarks when they come back. But we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, get rid of earmarks, period, because you have some knucklehead senators or representatives that won't do right with earmarks and have a bridge to nowhere.
Right. See, they keep talking about that.
Right.
But most earmarks are, and here's the thing, and it is, if you're a conservative, if you're for small government and everything, earmarks ought to be the thing you champion. Now, here's why. Because right now, our state legislature is terrible about it. I pushed for it on the mental health budget. I said, put an earmark that they must operate a minimum of so many state-run beds, because those are the only beds that a cop or a judge can access. The rest, they just cut a check to private healthcare corporations. And then our cops and our judges can't access those. Right. So 80% of our budget on mental health is not accessible to our cops and our courts. And that's why we have this issue you and I discussed a half hour ago. Without, the only other thing you can do is give government so much money that they no longer have an excuse not to do the thing that the legislature wanted. So if you want the core things done and not all the fluff, you got to tell big government, say, here's what you're going to do with that budget we're giving you. That's an earmark.
That's an earmark. Exactly. You make them name what they're going to do with that money.
Yes.
Not just, oh yeah, we're going to give you this money and you're going to.
Because otherwise you could have a conservative legislature and a very liberal deep state administrative state, and the legislature think they did the perfect thing. They passed the money necessary to run good government, and we got bad government. Why? Because the deep state spent it on Haitian flights instead of, hurricane relief.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Bringing it back once again to
Bingo.
An earlier topic.
We're having a good show, aren't we?
Love it when a story comes together. Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, some things are easy, but people don't understand them. And this is one of the sad things that I find it more with conservative. Well, no, I guess Democrats are sheep, herded and just follow the herd. And they don't look in. No, here's the difference between the Democrat and Republican constituents. Okay. Democrats just follow the herd instinctively, no matter where. You just say, this is our cause, and they'll go. With Republicans, they're herded by crafted messages. Somebody will, I would say, miscraft a message about something, say, you know, this, the earmark thing, or earmarks are bad, we got to get rid of them. Or the Constitutional Convention, that we got to do a Constitutional Convention, thinking, oh yeah, it sounds good. And it's probably the most dangerous thing you could ever do. And different things like that without researching it. You know, all I say, don't just buy it because somebody with the name conservative behind them says it. Don't buy anything I say or David says. Research. David and I, those of you that watch us know we don't agree on many things, or there are many things we don't agree on. Okay, I guess is a better way to say it. But we give you an opportunity to hear both sides. Same with Pat Campbell and I. So that's what made the show so good, is that we didn't disagree, but everybody had their side represented, and you could go home then and research it for yourself and decide. Yeah.
Can I say, one of the best political lessons I ever learned was watching The Music Man, Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical. Because remember, this shyster of a traveling salesman wanted to sell band uniforms for marching bands. And so what did he do? There's trouble in River City. It's pool, not billiards. Billiards is fine. Pool halls are a bad thing. We got to get our kids out of the pool hall. Let's get them band uniforms. You know, and look at that. Well, how irrational was that? But the people bought it.
Yeah, they did. What was the song he sang? Some with pool, double O.
Yeah. Exactly.
Something that rhymes with trouble.
Yes.
I can't remember the song, but I do remember.
Yes,
him
but
singing.
that was because they made a song out of it to show people getting sucked up and carried up, and they lost all rational sense because he appealed to their emotion. And remember, their band, the kids couldn't play for them, but the people heard it. Oh, it's my boy. It's like, oh. But it just taught you so much about human nature. And so in politics, to get your agenda passed, you have to create a devil. If you can't find a devil, you create one. And we see that happen all the time. And they're making earmarks to be a devil.
Right.
So.
Yeah, very good stuff. Hey, by the way, defiant Donald Trump returns to River City. No, not River. No, to Butler, Pennsylvania. He's going back to the scene of the crime. And so I bet there'll be more people there today than there were the last time.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. He's going to be there. The election, we're I guess less than a month away now, right? What day is the election?
1 month from today.
Today is 1 month exactly today. Wow. Okay. So I think as we get closer, Kamala is fading. She's starting to fade, and people are. I mean, I have faith in America. I do have faith. In fact, I saw a YouTube video yesterday where they were outside of believe it or not, a nightclub. But it was a nightclub of young people. I mean, probably aged 21 to say 28 years old. And they were interviewing all these, who are you voting for? And he has this picture of Trump, one of the, and he's going down the line. I mean, it's a line waiting to get, and all of them, Trump, baby, Trump all the way. And all these, I mean, young people, we're like I said, college age kids. Now, these may be non-college attending people. That's the thing though, which I'll switch over to that. But anyway, I've seen this time and time again now, interviewing young people, And the young people, they're all voting for Trump, which is really interesting. But what's funny too, though, is that the university students, the Democrats are so strong in those, because the university students have been so brainwashed against Republicans in general.
Yeah,
Oklahoma, in the gubernatorial election here last year, or was it has it been 2 years already, or was it a year ago?
2 years.
Yeah, wow, man, time is just flying. It's just crazy. Yeah, so 2 years ago, the gubernatorial election, our governor won re-election by a large number, actually, but he lost Norman, Stillwater, and Tulsa,
in Oklahoma City. But everywhere there's universities, he lost. And it's interesting that the university cities and large cities that the Democrats are strong in, and Republicans have the suburbs everywhere. Could I take a little wayside rest in our discussion and pull over into that topic? Eddie, you as a candidate have said you really believe law enforcement ought to require just a 2-year associate's degree, something you can get in a trade school. And it was Susan Savage, Democrat mayor of Tulsa, that changed it to a mandatory degree in order to even apply to the police academy.
Right.
And Eddie, I think I figured out a potential motivation for that. If you want a leftist liberal law enforcement agency, you force these kids to go to a 4-year liberal arts college.
Yeah, that I never thought of it in that way.
Yeah, I know. It just came to me, and I thought, let me bounce this by Eddie. Yeah,
but I don't know if that was Susan's.
It may not have been her motive, but it became a real outcome of it.
Yeah, but I've spoken with the FOP on this, and they have another opinion on it, and it actually made some sense. That they feel pretty strongly that we need to keep the degree in place. And so I don't want to get into it too deeply or anything, but I listen to their side of it.
Let's step out of Tulsa and just look in Oklahoma.
Right.
For most mid to larger towns, do you think generally a 2-year degree and getting CLEAT certified, because that's really what makes you a cop,
right,
is passing all your state exams?
Right. Yeah, but see what they've done. Like, so for example, if you come out of the military, let's say you've been in the military and you come out and you were an MP or something like that,
or SP or whoever.
Right. They have special programs now where you can go to get your college degree and everything and come out into the academy and so forth. So they do everything they can to help you get your.
See, I would like that more to be something that CLEAT looks at as an alternative education, and then CLEAT moves you on, rather than requiring some university to give you CLEP. I mean, awarding you credits towards one of their degrees, because then you're still dependent on those liberal colleges to decide whether a veteran should.
Yeah, but see, it doesn't have to be OU, or you could go to ORU.
I understand that.
Right.
But if you're going into law enforcement, are you going to go to ORU? Because they don't really have any degrees that go that direction.
Well, true.
I mean, you can get a degree in early childhood learning. But,
right, but it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, because
isn't that a shame that we are just buying credits?
Well,
that have nothing to do with what we really want to do.
Well, you know what? Yeah, but see, it's like when to become an insurance agent, you had to have a degree.
Yeah,
and reason for it. Here's the reasoning behind it: is that they feel if you can manage to learn and do what it takes to get a degree,
discipline,
the discipline, then you can, you can learn and do what it takes to.
Right. It's more.
My argument with him was this: my argument was this, that my argument really in general is, I'm not saying take somebody off the street or out of high school or whatever, but let's say take somebody that comes out of the military. They go in the military at 17 because you can volunteer at 17. So you go in the military, you do 4 years, right? So now you're 21 years old. You get out of the military and you've been in military police. You're an MP, you know?
Yeah.
So
with years of service.
Right. 4 years of service, you come out and you'd go to, you know, academy training.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, the 4 years of military experience, honorable discharge, et cetera, that would be my bypass. Yeah. In other words, 4-year college degree or coming out of one of the services.
4 years honorable service.
4 years honorable service, but in law enforcement in the military.
Right.
So you were an MP, SP for the Navy, AP, Air Police, you know, in the Air Force, whichever one you were in. Right. And a lot of them are CID, Criminal Investigation Department. So you have some criminology experience and you studied in the military. That's your MOS.
We're doing this for firefighters. We're doing it for ambulance, EMPs. We're doing it for a lot of things.
Taking them out of the military?
Yeah.
Oh, let me, they're going to have to wait. I didn't know I had, I know why. Anyway.
So yeah, I like the idea of doing that. I just hate to have to require some liberal college to be the arbiter of who gets.
Oh, I understand. No, I understand. No, I understand. And you would have to just trust that, you know, the officials that are hiring in the police.
Yeah. No,
so, I mean, that's one of the things that's hurt the military, that the generals, like the Pentagon right now. So for example, in the Pentagon, you've gotten to the point where in the Pentagon, they have, the Pentagon is rife now with liberal generals.
Yeah.
You know, Air Force, the Air Force Academy is the worst. I mean, it's unbelievable where they, you know, they basically have become an atheistic, and that's because one of the cadets who served later, and now he's like the head of the what is it?
Secretary of the Air Force?
No. This organization. Oh man, what in the heck?
Everybody wants to visit us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, Eddie's getting that.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got to. I'm wondering if it's not somebody that's watching the program. But anyway, took my train of thought. I can't. It's freedom from religion. Thank you. Freedom from Religion Society. He's the head of that, and he's an Air Force Academy graduate and served in the Air Force. And he's now the head of the Freedom from Religion, not Freedom of Religion. And he is a staunch advocate of not allowing religion anywhere near the academies and in the military or anything with the government. Yeah. So that's what's
man.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think
anyway, back to the police though. Yeah. What I'm saying is, so what we do have to do is trust the police we have now. Yeah. To make the right decision, have the right people, and it all depends on the hiring practice. Are they hiring the right people?
No. This is just me talking, not Eddie Huff or his politics. Is any FOP has a moral responsibility to protect, you know, the career interests of the people who dedicate their careers to law enforcement. One of the axioms that goes on is when somebody says, hey, I had to go through all of this, jump through all these hoops. And it's part of human nature to say, why do these guys not have to do what I did? So that's a human nature thing. because generally I see a lot of things that are ridiculous at the state level. Nathan Dahm tried to work on it where, you've got to have a locksmith license to put a Ring doorbell on your neighbor's house. That's law. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the craziness of all of these. By making people jump through all these hoops, we're in the administrative state too on things. And I'm just more broadly the principle about making people jump through hoops, because once you've jumped through hoops, guess what? Your human nature say, I had to do it. Why doesn't he have to? So, and I think an FOP is going to voice that concern of their membership.
Right. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. We do. And, but, like I said, we just have to trust for now. Like I would, to me, the sheriff's department or the highway patrol. Yeah. I think they accept a junior college.
Yep.
It's a 2-year degree.
And then you go through their academy.
Then you go through their academy.
Because that's really where they decide who's fit.
Right, exactly. So it's, I mean,
everything prior to
the police, Tulsa police, and I guess Oklahoma City police, other police, they've just decided they want a certain standard. When I was when I became an insurance agent, it was a 4-year degree.
Okay, let me tone in on that. That 4-year degree means you couldn't even apply unless you had that.
Right, exactly.
That was a weeding out thing.
Right. Okay. Right.
Then you had to pass muster with them and then also get your state insurance license. Right. So you had the state, you had the company that's underwriting, and those are already 2 standards that you had to pass after getting your 4-year degree. So the 4-year degree was just to weed out the applicants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, how bad do you want it, and how, right. Okay. And are you willing to study? Because it's like, and here's what's funny. Okay. Even when I got out of college, my first job was a claims adjuster. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to be a claims adjuster, I had to go through claims training. Mm-hmm. Right. And learn all of the laws, insurance laws, and this and that. And I remember I had to take a whole year to, and I didn't know anything, and so they didn't even any claims. They just gave me a big book. Yeah. So I'm in my desk daily, and then I had to take tests, and it was like going to college again. Yeah. For a year, and then after the year, then I had to go to a property school. Yeah. Then I had to go to an auto collision school. Yeah. And then I had, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness,
Oh, and now, Glenn Mulready, I'm talking to you. The state says you can't keep your license unless you go through our diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And I've seen that test, and it's a bunch of crap. Okay? Well, see, I can say that because I'm not waiting to get my license. Like, renewal. Have you got your renewal?
Yeah. Everybody has to do that. Every 2 years, you have to go through that, and legislative changes, and you have to go through this and that.
Yeah, I'd like an explanation from Glenn politically why the heck this came about.
It's the game. I mean, it's the game that I'm sure what it is. Oklahoma is part of the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, okay, the NAIC. So what happens, for example, I have an insurance license for Oklahoma. Yeah. But I also have a Texas license, and I have a New Mexico license, and I can get I can get one in. But
just like passing state bar exam.
Right. But all I have to do to get my license there, I don't have to take their tests. All I have to do is show them that I've passed it, the standard for Oklahoma, that's good. And pay their fee, of course, pay for the licensing fee.
Yeah, it's called reciprocating.
Exactly, reciprocal license. But to do that, I have to pass. They have to show that their standard is the same as all these other the National Insurance Commissioner. Right. So to Glenn's case, it's not just him to stay in good with the national NAIC.
Okay.
Yeah, Association.
Just like there's the National Governors Association or Republican Governors. In fact, I think Frank Keating and Mary Fallon both were in leadership of a Republican Governors Association.
Right.
This is why it's important for people like Glenn to really get to a place of influence in these agencies, because he can further help the Oklahoma licensed agents to have more opportunity. But it comes at a price and a risk, because you might have to jump through hoops that offend you.
Right.
I want to argue the other side of the law enforcement thing. Okay. I'm going to argue against myself right now.
Okay.
All right. Eddie, do you remember in your high school civics back when you actually, when a high school diploma meant you knew something? They said, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Remember that axiom? I think we've heard it a lot.
Yeah, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
You're right. You saying, well, I didn't know there was a law against it, is not a viable protection from prosecution. And have you seen our state statutes? I mean, this room could not handle the volumes of books that are all laws that you Oklahomans cannot say ignorance of the law is no excuse. All right. I do not know of a single attorney who knows all of the state statutes. That's why they specialize. Okay. And some of them are very poor at whatever they claim to specialize in. And we're telling 18-year-olds at the age of majority, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now, a cop who has to enforce the entire state statutes, all the city ordinances and federal law and constitutional law, he's supposed to know all of that and adjudicate it properly. Is 4 years enough? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe it says that we ought to clean up our state statutes and really get it back down to only the things we truly enforce, because there's a lot of stuff on the books we don't.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw this. There's a video out there, and this young officer is arresting a guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to arrest him. The guy takes off running, and he runs across to where some senior officers are. He's protesting. He's doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and the officer is arresting him for being wherever he is protesting. So the guy takes off running. The guy is running after him, and he finally catches him. He catches him up in front of these other senior officers, and the guy just stops. And so then he's trying to arrest him, and the sergeant says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm arresting the guy." And the sergeant says, "Based on what?" He said, "Based on," and he says, "No, he has a right to do that there and then." And so the young officer says, "But no, he can't be here and here." And he says, "Why not? Show me where he can't," and it's the young officer and the poor guy. It was, it was very embarrassing to him. I don't know if it was, to me, it wasn't handled properly.
Exactly.
He probably should have had a talk with the young officer privately.
Well, that's just it. Yeah.
And should have allowed him to personally, I would have allowed him to make the arrest and then taken him privately and let the guy go, and then had a talk with the officer on why he had to let him go or something.
Yeah.
That's how I would have handled it. But it was like he embarrassed the officer and then made the guy feel like, "Oh, look at me, look what I just got away with."
That's what happened. State or Congressman Patrick Kennedy crashed his car on the Capitol Mall, and Capitol Police swarmed. They're arresting him and everything. And they called in the higher-ups. Higher-ups show up, tell all the other on-the-beat cops, "Leave, we're handling this." And they let him go. Why? Because he's a congressman. He has immunity from the law that he just blatantly broke. Now, that's part of it. The other part was leadership of the House told him, "You're not running again." And that was the deal they made so that they wouldn't expel him. This is Patrick Kennedy. Now, Patrick Kennedy is really good personal friends with our own John Sullivan, former congressman. Both those guys were alcoholics, and both of them got treatment. Patrick Kennedy also had some mental health issues on top of it that led to his alcoholism. But and Patrick Kennedy's doing some great things today, but he had to get a hold of his own life. That was just an aside. You sometimes, the idealistic young cop doesn't understand the bigger picture, the nuances, and
it's there's a lot to take in.
It doesn't seem just to the young idealist. Just like when somebody with what do you call that when they're an ambassador from another country, they have diplomatic immunity. Yeah, because you understand it being, going from Europe to here and stuff. Well, so yeah, you've got that. In getting back to your homeless thing, that the city council is out dealing with these hoops they have to jump through, the vests and everything. I was talking to my neighbor James last night. I told you he's the one that's mowing lawns on the side of his regular just to pay the mortgage, and homeowners insurance gone up like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Well, anyway, and he says they're panhandling. There's not a constitutional right to panhandle. And I said, this is one of those hard cases where the cure might be more dangerous than the illness. I said, if you notice, a lot of those guys holding signs, the sign's not saying, please give me $1. They're saying homeless, handicapped, veteran. They're telling you things that are constitutionally protected free speech and free press. And he's trying to say, no, they ought not be able to do that. And I'm like, sometimes the law enforcement solution is a more egregious unconstitutional act than what they're doing. And I think maybe if our city council is not careful, they could create more egregious violations of our constitutional rights, trying to solve an issue.
In what way?
In how they approach it, and
well, yeah, but see, the problem we run into is having them on thoroughfares, in intersections and so forth, and it becomes basically it's a public nuisance, and couch it however you will.
Right.
They're asking for money.
Okay, loitering, for instance.
Right.
Is something that has stood the test of time, and there's certain standards that not just anybody walking down the street gets accused of loitering. Right. The same can be true of crosswalks, for instance, center medians and that.
Right.
Nobody's supposed to stay in a center median.
Right, which is where they are.
And there are ways to deal with that as issues having to do with crosswalks and things like that in pedestrian lanes and stuff like that. And as long as you have sidewalks, you can enforce that. So there again. So there are. It's just really important that the city and the city's legal counsel and that really be careful in how you try to fix it. I'm not disagreeing.
I agree. Yeah, you've always got to look at the legal aspects, but the problem is that they have allowed themselves to get painted into this corner by allowing the legal beagles to write these laws into a way where it's boxed them into a corner.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's almost like the homeless are now running the cities.
Yeah.
Instead of the cities determining who's homeless and what they can do and so forth. It's been flipped upside down.
I think the homeless are getting legal help. I'm not saying it's George Kaiser. I'm saying there's a lot of people that see this as a political tool.
Sure.
To reshape society.
Yeah.
And that's
and it's channeling money to certain entities
Mm-hmm.
that are getting.
Because again, we saw that this was a tool the Soviets used in divided Germany when you were there, right? The Muriel boat lift and that. Let's dump a bunch of our worst problems in society on them.
Right.
And
you overwhelm the system,
mm-hmm.
cause it to crash.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there comes a breaking point. And they were able
mm-hmm.
to, actually, I think what happened to Germany, they rebuilt by sending
mm-hmm.
a lot of them out.
Yeah.
Now Germany did have another situation. They had a lot. They also brought in a lot of, if anybody had any claim to being a German citizen, like myself, I could go back to Germany and claim that I could be a German citizen.
You're born there to a German mother.
Right. And so therefore I could go and claim, my rights and everything, get pensioned and all of that. And now, but a lot of them came in and started, paying taxes and working. So because the birth rate to the Germans, I think, what is America at 2.1, the birth rate?
That's the minimum sustainable. I think most of Europe's below that.
Right. No, I said, what are we here? I think.
Yeah, we're right at about that.
Right. And then, in Germany, I think it was at like 1.1 or
mm-hmm.
something. It was like really bad. Mm-hmm. So they actually wanted more to come in to start working and paying taxes mm-hmm. and so forth. So that was a lot of their situation too. So it actually helped them to a point. Right.
You see, that's a way that you can destroy another nation, is manipulate them and hire at, and say overpopulation is a terrible problem. We're going to have this, and get them to, on their own, self-limit by getting them not to have kids while you're having tons of kids. Well, guess who's going to rule the world in a decade? I mean, China actually is dying.
Right. Because they had the what was it, 2-child rule or something?
One child.
Oh, one child.
Yeah, for 40 years.
Oh, and it had to be a male. Remember?
That was the people saying, because culturally the sons always provided for the parents.
Okay. Well, I thought it was the government that they were killing, male children.
The government did nothing about what the people were doing, but people were aborting daughters and having sons. Yeah. If they found out that the one child that they're allowed to have was a girl, they would abort. But it was explained to me back in the 80s that was because of the cultural way in which whose sons took care of parents. And but I want to say this, and I'm going all the way back to 2021. It was on March 24th, White House. Biden taps VP Harris to lead response to border challenges. President Joe Biden has tapped Vice President Kamala Harris to lead the White House effort to tackle immigration challenges at the U.S. southern border. Now, that means who's responsible for what's gone on with our borders? I'm taking the White House own words. She's in charge.
Or has been for the last.
Has been since March 24th of 2021.
Right. And she hasn't.
Yeah. Last week, she finally actually went to one of the borders.
Right.
And so she's been the one doing this.
Right.
This has been the one, And it's criminal what's going on, because she's sending planes over to other nations because they weren't getting in fast enough down in Mexico. The cartels were getting in her way.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is she doing? Sending planes.
Yep.
And sending them to places like Springfield, Ohio. What the heck?
Where they're eating the dogs.
At what point?
Eating the cats.
Yes. At what point is this any different from what the Soviets were doing in Germany?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The only difference is we're doing it to ourselves. Yeah. It's a tough deal. So we can only pray and hope for the best in November.
I'm not saying she's a Soviet agent. I'm saying there's no distinction between her and a Soviet agent. That's just the way it is. I'm ready for some football today. I'll tell you what.
So you were telling us or me earlier that the Big 12 is not looking so good.
The very best ranked team right now is Iowa State, 4-0.
And BYU.
Iowa State is ranked number 16, and right behind them is BYU in Utah.
BYU is 4-0, aren't they? I believe they're being.
They are.
And now Utah is 3-1 because Utah just lost last week.
Yeah, to Arizona. That's right.
And Arizona's looking really good. What is Arizona's record? Are they 3-1?
I think they're 3-1.
Who did they lose to? I wonder who they lost to. I can't remember.
I forget. But then Kansas State is 4-1.
They're 4-1.
Is right behind. Is at 20. So we're right now at
Texas Tech, by the way, is also 4-1, aren't they?
Yeah. Evidently, though, they just aren't getting the respect.
They never do.
Yeah. So basically, we're at 16, 17, 18, and 20. And one team dropped out of the top 25 nationally, Oklahoma State. They've got 2 losses. And so, yeah, it's not a pretty picture right now.
Yeah, but right now it really isn't important.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's not. It's when we get towards the end. If we have 1 or 2 undefeated teams at the end of the year, especially now with the playoffs. See, in a way, the expanded playoff really helps the Big 12 a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we get 2 teams in there, 2 undefeated, we have, 2 undefeated teams.
Mm-hmm.
We have a chance of getting 2 teams in there.
Mm-hmm.
If we get 2 teams in there and they move on in the playoffs, we have a good chance. That's where we need to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I'm not worried about it right now.
Right. Interesting thing at the top, you've got the sports writers poll, AP, and then you've got the coaches poll. The coaches think that Texas is the number 1 team.
Yeah.
Whereas the sports writers think it's Alabama. Those 2 are flip-flopping, 1 and 2. Other than that, everybody's pretty much consistent on who they think, the rest of the top 10 are.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how Texas is able to just get these people to just believe in them so much.
It's the coaches, but even the sports writers think they're number 2. And really, it's
no, I would give them number 2. I would let, but as far as number 1, I'm just not ready to do that.
Yeah, they inch out for votes. I think there are about 60 coaches are polled in this, and are 55, whatever. Texas has 29 of the coach first place votes, Alabama 19. So it's getting close to.
Where's OU?
OU is down around 20. Let's see. There's 17 in the coaches poll and 19 in the sports writers. They have 1 loss. That was to Tennessee, which is at top 5, number 4.
Yeah.
So, Tennessee is good, which is, of course, an alum of OU, Heifel coaching them. So it's an interesting deal. And I guess OU's off this week. Normally, our last weekend of the Tulsa State Fair is the OU Texas game because it's the first Saturday of the Texas State Fair. And somehow moving to the SEC, I guess the Red River rivalry got pushed back a week. So, it's an interesting deal, and that'll be a fun game next week to see. So, and TU is they're just hurting. I think they lost to, was it North Texas? I mean, used to be North Texas State. Wasn't good enough.
Yeah, it used to be North Texas State, now the University of North Texas.
Yeah, so TU's hurting. I'm just concerned about Oklahoma State. I don't know.
Ollie hadn't panned out as much.
It's kind of like Chuba Hubbard, his senior year. And I don't know. NIL is a big deal. You know what? I've got a suspicion here. You notice how you're seeing all kinds of Deion Sanders commercials.
Yeah, and his son, Shador.
I wonder if that isn't Dion making money and saying, give it to my son.
Well, no, Shadur's got his own.
Well, I understand.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If, in other words, it's actually they want Dion, but they're hiring Shadur.
Shadur's getting the paycheck.
Nah,
or some of the pay, or it's a package deal.
Yeah, but Shadur, I think it's Shadur on his own because of whose son he is.
Yeah, but I'm just not seeing him doing anything that his dad isn't right there on the screen with.
No, but I think he's got his own. See, he was already, even before you saw him, he was already number 2. Mm-hmm. Who used to be number 1 was Arch Manning.
Yeah.
And then it was Shadur was second. Mm-hmm. This was last year. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell you who's the really interesting one. She may be number 2 now. And it's this young lady.
Libby Gunn.
Mm-hmm. Libby Dunn.
Dunn, yes.
Yeah, Libby Dunn, yeah.
Yeah, the gym.
From LSU. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the heartthrob of every high schooler and junior high kid.
She's a cutie. There's no doubt.
All the boys follow her. She's got armies of boys following her.
And the girls.
Yeah, girls too.
Well, the girls want to be her.
Oh, they want to be her. Yeah, yeah. She's soon she's going to outpace Taylor Swift, which is kind of funny.
I'm good with that. She's a homeschool gal.
Yeah. Have you heard Taylor Swift's ticket sales have just dropped?
No.
Yeah. She's losing her popularity real quickly because of her liberal stance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, her ticket prices have dropped to $75. She was up in $1,000, for the floor tickets and everything, and they've dropped way down now.
Listen, her world tour of the last couple of years was a genius marketing move. Nobody's done what she did, and I can't take that away from her. She's smart business, but yeah, it's. It's just stupid business to get in the middle of something. Because look, she lives in a bubble, and it's a very leftist liberal bubble, and they just don't get it. It's kind of like Glenn Campbell, and I've quoted this to you, where he went to see Lawrence Welk for advice back in the 60s. On his music career, because he actually performed on the Lawrence Welk show. He actually got his big start here in Tulsa, Skelly Stadium. One of the lead singers for the Beach Boys got sick and couldn't perform, and he lived in Arkansas, I think Springdale or something like that. He come over here and filled in. But Glenn Campbell said the best advice in reasoning from Lawrence Welk about rock and roll music of the day. He said, look, they may have all the glitz and, connections, the Hollywood elite. But Lawrence Welk says, there's more of us than there are of them. In other words, you really want to build a fan base. At that time, rock and roll wasn't it.
Right.
And if you really want the masses all to support you, stay out of their politics, because you're not an expert in public policy. You're not an expert in all these things. Quit acting like you are. Just because you're popular doesn't mean you know it all.
Well, Kevin Hart, who's probably the most popular comedian around right now.
And he's on commercials with everybody.
Yeah, and he's just very popular. Well, anyway, they wanted him to essentially, start dissing on Trump. And he said, I'm not doing that. He said, Trump fans love me.
Yeah.
And they buy my tickets. He said, I'm not doing that. So he shows how intelligent he really is, how smart that, it's about the audience. I'm an entertainer. I entertain all people. And I don't pick and choose. Trump fans or Trump supporters buy my tickets just like those who don't like Trump. And I'm not going to alienate a part of my fan base. Anybody who's my fan, I'm a fan of theirs. And so that's his posture. And you get these people like Madonna or Taylor, you alienate a whole part of your fan base and or potential fan base. And
I think it was in something like maybe it had been 91, the last time Paul Harvey came to Tulsa. Kid grew up here, went to Central High School downtown, and got his start. Same studio you were, well, not studio, but KVO, right? Which is the predecessor to, I think it was a Chamber of Commerce event or something. No, it might have been Red Cross, big fundraising thing, but he was the guest of honor to speak at it. And so part of the deal was he called in John Erling, KRMG, that morning because KRMG carried his news, and to kind of do a promo to get people to come out to this fundraiser. And so John Erling's just having a discussion with him, and Erling couldn't help himself. He said, the teachers are on strike here. What are your thoughts on that? And Paul Harvey said, well, I know this. I have not lived in Tulsa, beautiful town. I love Tulsa, but I haven't lived here in so long. I am not fit to speak to that issue. And Tulsa does not need an outsider coming in and telling them what their values are. He says, but I will say this. A teacher is always teaching whether they're in the classroom or not. He just dumped it at that because it was a wildcat strike.
Right.
It was the same thing they pulled in 2018, in which the school board went along with it by shutting down the schools so they wouldn't fail to appear.
Right.
Because of wildcat.
Has it been that long already? 6 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems like just yesterday.
Yeah. But anyway, Paul Harvey had the sense to know, as much as he's loved and respected and looked up to and people wanted, like, no, I do it because it would hurt Paul Harvey.
Yeah, sure.
And you want everybody to do it. So just don't. Just don't.
That's right. Yeah. Well, listen, I think we've
had a good show.
Chopped some wood today.
So next Saturday, tell your friends that chair will be occupied by Karen Keith, current city councilor and
county commissioner.
Current county commissioner, and candidate for mayor. All right.
Should be a great time.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what she has to offer.
And if you're a Monroe supporter, the following week, Monroe will have his shot.
That's right.
So,
all right. Hey, thank you, everybody. And we will talk to you again, Lord willing, next week.